November, every day, minute, even second. They are like snowflakes or sand. They do not have copies. They are completely different and do not resemble each other, and many factors contribute to this phenomenon, including the weather, which presents new surprises from time to time with each change of the season. So, November. It was only the third month of autumn, and the snow was already completely covering the ground with a white layer, turning the city into one big nebula. White flakes fell almost every day, varying in time from several hours to whole days, turning everything around into a continuous veil, among which one could see only gray, dull five-story buildings with lights burning in some places and stumps of crumbling dead trees, many of which had been cut down by a bizarre interweaving of old branches. There was a story in District Inn, which looked like an echo of the old post-war times with crumbling two-story houses, on which there were more terrible emergency cracks than residents and neat bushes, which in the warm season were the decoration of these God-forsaken places. The inhabitants of the district were for the most part not the most prosperous middle-aged couples and pensioners, living out their lives in faded apartments, with faded and in places blackened with mold wallpaper in a compartment with cockroaches that hide behind kitchen cabinets and cracked risers during the day, and in the evening crawl out to hunt for stale bread crusts that have fallen behind the tables and the plates and forgotten there. Who knows what's in their head? To be honest, in fact, no one knows at all who lives in these old moldy shelters, who hides behind the dark openings of broken windows and carved rusty bars, who does not turn on the lights there at night and walls up the windows with bricks, making the once cozy houses ugly. Anyone in their right mind believes that this was done for the purpose of an interesting design or repair. But I think differently. I've never been in the attic. That's why we need to go there. Are you savvy? The girl, wrapped in a scarf and a long khaki coat, had a rather loud, hoarse voice, but even he was carried away by the wind somewhere in the distance, which made the Minister of Defense periodically had to ask again. Their conversation looked ridiculous. Almost every 15 minutes, there were exclamations of "what?" or "I can't hear," and endless repetition of the same phrase following them. Not really, but I'll believe your unshakable logic. Only the attics are usually closed. Yes, and the entrance. Let's check it out. The guy in the black hat, pulled up to his eyes, did not have time to finish the sentence, as Mr. Minister was already overcoming the snowdrifts that had been laid out for a week, which blocked her way to the gaping hole of an open entrance with a crooked red door. Against the background of the general whitishness, it looked like the mouth of a monster that is waiting for some curious crook to look inside, never to let it out again. The guy had to follow the director, then stepping over snowdrifts, then falling into them and picking up thousands of icy, sharp snowflakes in his shoes. The girl, as soon as the minister stepped onto the porch of the entrance, ducked inside and quietly, like a mouse, headed to the upper floor. The hour was not so late, but the house seemed too quiet from the inside, as if no one lives here at all or else sleeps a sound, unbroken sleep. There was a musty smell of dampness in the air, cat urine, some kind of medicine, and it seems a sweet smell of rotten fruit. It must have been someone who didn't take out the garbage bag, just putting it on the landing. This phenomenon was common among residents of old houses. Only now the director and his minister went through all 2 miserable floors and there was no garbage, and they didn't even see a single puddle. Only in some places the bare gray walls were affected by mold. Mr. Minister stopped, looking up. "It's open." She spoke softly and briefly. All the enthusiasm disappeared somewhere. It was worth looking at the black hatch, which was even darker than the darkness of the entrance, and the rusty, unstable staircase. "Listen, let you go first, and I'll stand guard. Suddenly someone, well, it will come out there. she said uncertainly. Maybe it's not necessary. Let's get out of here. We must. I've never been in the attic. I'm curious. What is there? What if there are corpses? More like pipes. Okay. He went to the ladder and took hold of the first rung, testing its strength. Then a second, a third, and soon disappeared into the darkness, from which only echoing footsteps could be heard. 1, 2, 4. The girl turned her head sharply to the green wooden door on the right, from where shuffling sounds were heard. It seems nothing terrible, but she froze, afraid to attract the attention of something on the other side of the door, and it was worth calling the guy from above. In this position, it was impossible to escape from the alleged pensioner. "What are you doing here?" A strange hollow voice was heard from behind the door. He rolled and sounded like a woman, then like a man. Goosebumps ran down the girl's back. She couldn't think of anything better than to keep silent. She wanted to jerk down and run away, but she couldn't leave the guy there in the attic, so she just stood on the landing, not daring to take any action. "What are you doing here?" The question was repeated from behind the door, and Mr. Minister called softly, "Max, come over here." He didn't hear and had to call louder. Fortunately, after the second call, a familiar surprised face appeared from above. Unfortunately, not the only one. The mug that poked out from behind the door had strange outlines and caused dissonance, some kind of effect of an ominous valley. Not only did the old wrinkled face of the woman with glasses had too wide a mouth, and on a large head there were at most 3 strands of gray sparse hair, so also the neck on which it all rested was unusually long. The pensioner stuck out from behind the slightly open door, but neither arms nor shoulders were visible. "What are you doing here?" The voice sounded very close, and Mr. Minister turned pale from the way the sound was carried. It seemed to have no source and sounded around, then louder, then quieter. She just didn't understand how it could make sounds in principle, how it can exist. "We came in. Watch." Maxim answered, strangled, but calmly. All of the girl doubted that the creature parodying the pensioner could understand them. "Why?" A short sentence rang out. "Because it's open." It was a little sarcastic, but very quietly. The voice was trembling with horror. The girl answered, grabbing the guy by the hand, and dragged him to the stairs, without taking her eyes off the woman. "What are you doing here?" A minute, and they both flew down to the first floor of the crash, falling out into a large snowdrift that had formed in front of the porch during this time. He softened the fall, and the necks remained intact. "When did he get here?" The Minister of Defense spat snow. "Is that the only thing that bothers you?" The girl jumped up, and in 2 jumps was on the swept road. "No, it's simple. Everything is confusing, but we were there for a maximum of 20 minutes, and there was snow like in 2 days, and not a single trace. All the same on the tracks. Let's get out of here," hissed the director, forcing the guide to get to his feet and move away from the cursed entrance. She looked up. Not a single window in this old house was lit, and the general impression of some kind of abandonment was perplexing. The silent scene continued all the time that they were walking through the district. Either there was nothing to say or no one dared to utter a word in this dead silence, constrained by some incomprehensible inner fear, which receded only when the sudden rumble of the wheels of a passing tram crashed into their ears. Prospect? "I'm going home, probably." "Cold," Mr. Minister said, putting her hands in her pockets. "It wasn't that cold. Actually, I just want to hide. Get as far away as possible. Think about what happened." "Go ahead. You live nearby, and I'll walk myself." She nodded softly in the direction of the 5-story houses covered with fog and a veil of snow, turning her back to her friend. The rest of the way home, The girl wondered what it was all the same and where such a creature came from there at all. And can she get out of there? 2 other houses.